right. Joyce Clarke is a 20-year freelance grant writer specializing in education and the arts. She is also a researcher in this space, currently monitoring trends and changes in California regarding COVID-19. Joyce, you're still looking at reentry during COVID. Now, houses of worship this past weekend, wouldn't they fit into a category of large, diverse gatherings? Why are they open at this early stage of reentry?
Glenn, first of all, it's good to be back with you again and to answer that question. Churches have forced the hand of the governor and his team, who for health reasons really slated the churches for reopening in stages 3 and 4, where they fit into the category of large gatherings. Why are they open at this early stage of reentry? Because they wanted to be.
Shows a lot of influence. So what happened that made the governor comply before he was ready?
First, you have to look at the buildup of frustration in the religious community. Since the beginning of COVID, churches were severely restricted and thought they could continue to do the drive-in, theater type of worship or 50 people or less in a sanctuary 6 feet apart. Then the governor, as you recall, put a lockdown on everything in early April when a surge was expected. Another issue was that cannabis stores were considered essential businesses, but churches were not, and churches were angry about this. Subsequently, a group of churches filed a civil suit against the state to be an essential business. In the interim, churches made a mass exodus to online worship services and also gave their parishioners several options to continue giving.
So what was the turning point that they opened the end of May? Was it really the Memorial Day holiday?
You would think so. But for the past several weeks, a religious task force has been at work putting together guidelines for the church reopening. The tipping point, though, was protests by a group of churches that defiantly said they would open during the Memorial Day holiday because it also coincided with the Jewish holiday, Shabbos, and the Pentecostal Sunday, which both, for Christians really, which both those holidays come between May the 28th and the 31st. So the guidelines were approved on May 25th for reentry with some strict restrictions. And some of the measures really have limitations that have caused many large churches to decide not to open because they could only have 100 people or 25% of their normal congregation, whichever number was lower.
It's amazing. Well, Shor, you're a trauma-informed specialist with TIPS IE. What is your assessment on the ministerial sector feeling frustrated that they were designated or not designated an essential business?
I don't think they are. I think that God is, and I think that the business of God can be done in the home. It can be done remotely. It can be done virtually. I think that God is in high demand, that those who have faith, that we need to seek, the Lord and our religious leaders, but I don't think that those buildings are essential. So for that frame of mind, I'm wondering during this pandemic if we're looking too much at man and not enough at God. God is bringing us through. People are praying individually. There are a lot of churches that have gone online and they're doing Facebook and they're keeping their congregations fed. And I think that that's appropriate right now. I think that cannabis stores are open and considered essential because they are medication for millions of people. And in a time right now where we are going through some very mental crises, right? Where We are seeing an increase in domestic violence, where drug abuse is at a high, where we are seeing the violence in the streets. Our emotions are high. And if the cancer patient or the anxiety patient or the depression patient isn't able to get their medication, I don't see how we can compare the two. God is with me at all times. I can call my pastor, I can call the elder, I can get the support I need. And again, we have Zoom. So I, as a mental health provider, think that obeying the law and having social distancing and reducing the chance of getting the virus would be the priority of our community. And I would think of our religious leaders.
No, I think that's a very important point that you made as we're looking at it, the issue through a religious lens. But Joyce, as we move away from that religious lens, which Shor actually gave us a good peek into, what about the membership? I mean, from an organization standpoint, a pastor still has a responsibility to them. You know, so is there any information on what members are saying about reentry?
There has been, and I've just sort of been hearing this from friends and reading it in the newspaper, that pastors have received numerous phone calls from worshipers asking when their church is going to be open. And that's not just California, but that's other states as well. Pastors have responded in various ways, and a lot of that is based on the age of their core worshipers. Most of them may be high-risk senior citizens. The preparedness of the edifice itself, the cleanliness, many of them have been locked up for weeks, unused. And mostly whether the pastor felt that the Lord was guiding him or her at this time to reopen. Many churches, especially the small ones, have been doing live streaming services combined with small groups in the sanctuary or maybe in one of the smaller rooms in the building to have some kind of in-person attendance. And that's really in an effort to stay connected to their congregation. And don't forget phone calls. Many of the churches, pastors do robocalling to their parishioners, say every Friday or Thursday, just to give them an encouraging word. So the pastor's responsibility, yes, is to try to stay connected to their parishioners.
Okay. Okay. You know, a curious dynamic. If feeling stressed, a pastor automatically goes to God in prayer for guidance and answers. It's a common Christian phrase that worry and faith can't occupy the same space. So, sure, knowing that worry is also a common human emotion, what are some of the calming tactics a pastor can incorporate while he waits?
But he and his congregation, right? I would think that the pastors are doing this. They are talking to their groups about mindfulness, about number one, breathing, using breathing exercises when they get anxious or they're depressed. I'm sure that our pastors are talking about, how to safely distance, how to just sit in this and pray, pray that God is going to deliver us, really, that we have the skills that we need to get through this. And I think that our churches, that our pastors aren't just sitting there. Again, I think that they're working hard with their communities and that they're hopefully bringing their congregation into the community as far as the robocalls and all of that, and each member helping each other. The love of God, spreading through the church is for the whole body. And for our leaders to set up, to organize, and for that to happen. So I think we have a fantastic time right now for our ministries to be just free, to minister, free to not worry about how many are going to come in the door. We're seeing right now with a lot of the videos that we do that you can reach nationally now. I think that maybe I know the big churches are already doing that, but it's an opportunity for our smaller churches to build God's kingdom, to make their influence more in this time. So again, if we're just talking about that building, I don't think that a lot of our pastors,
Mm.
although, everybody wants to go back to what was normal. I think the thing now is for us to be mentally well is to start looking at the opportunities and what we have now, to start seeing that there's a lot of bounty now. There are a lot more people looking for God now, and they're not in the traditional places. So this is a time for us to reach out and touch those and spread the influence of love, you know.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, some good points. Good points, Shor. Good points.
Yeah. So let's shifting gears a bit. Let's look at the guidelines that are driving the reopening. Joyce, can you provide us with some details?
Sure. First off, and Glenn, we've said this every time we've met, the virus has not stopped. It's still in the driver's seat, despite the fact that California and other states are reopening. So the guidelines for houses of worship are stringent, again, because they're large gathering places. Too many different diverse populations in one space can lead to the virus resurging again. So everyone who goes to church, first two rules we've all been already living under: wear a mask and social distancing, even in the church. And these 13 pages of guidelines are very thorough, and they really do cover every denomination and every kind of edifice that you'll see around California. So I've chosen 5. There are a list, just a list of many limitations, um, but I've chosen 5 for us to kind of look at right now that really are common to all the different kinds of churches. And I will add that some of them require an extra added financial burden on these churches. So the first one we all know is to shorten the service duration, limit the length of the service. Again, so people are not close together for a long period of time. Number 2,
Mhm.
every church it probably has balked at this. No singing and no group recitation.
Oh my.
So
Woo!
sure, I am waiting for you to weigh in on this in terms of the black church and also all churches that have a choir that sing. So this is really tough. So no singing and no group recitations. Discourage sharing of items. That could be the prayer book, the hymn book, and that sort of thing. Um, excuse me, discontinue passing the offering plate because people are handling that hand to hand to hand. Uh, and also the money is also another issue, handling the money with your hands. Consider, number 5, consider limiting the number of people that use the restroom at one time. And so
Let's
even if you,
consider.
well, even if you have a 5-stall restroom, you really are going to have to practice social distancing in that space. So if you've got a couple of kids, you got to bring those 4 or 5 kids in the bathroom at one time, and you're the only ones that can be in there. So those are 5 I just pulled out.
Wow.
You
Wow.
know, I mean, it really creates a very detailed approach to understand what the church being in business has. I mean, but it's necessary for the health of the parishioners. So
Absolutely.
this opening is only good for 21 days after approval. How does the county intend to monitor this 21-day process?
Well,
Thoughts, Joyce?
and that's the thing. It is only for 21 days. You get the approval to open your church. You let the county know when you're going to open your church and it's a 21-day period of monitoring it. And you have to designate a COVID-19 director to oversee this plan. They have reporting to do, and they have to report anyone who has symptoms. Because one of the things the churches has to do, as everyone enters the building, they have to have their temperature taken with one of the remote guns, I'll call it, that you've seen, devices that you've seen on television. So once the 21 days are over, the California Department of Health, um, will consult with you, will assess where you are, and they can do two things. They can either limit your worship services or close your church.
Hmm. So, Shor, given the 5 limitations Joyce recited and the many others in these guidelines that people have to remember, what do you think will be the reaction of returning congregants?
It's pretty rough. That's pretty rough for a church to even enforce. I think that's hard for the county to enforce. I think of our cultures. Church is a culture. It's an institution. I mean, it is. It's a business, but it's a culture. And these 5 things are the culture of the church. I mean, we're going there for fellowship, right? That's what the Bible says. It says to go to the church to be with fellowship, to be with others of like minds, and to be there to help and uplift each other. So I'm kind of trying to understand how we're going to do that without the singing, to bring in the presence of the Lord, how we're going to do that unless they do it virtually. They could have the chorus tape away and then play it on the screen, and have the chorus, timed that way. But you're going to have people in the pews singing. They're going to get into the rhythm, and they're going to be with God. And so I don't see the possibility of it. I think that it harms the culture, that the 5 things that she's named make it not church anymore. We can also do Cash App. The churches could definitely set up so that each member could sit there on their phone and just Cash App, Venmo, use these new ways of collecting funds. So I think that there are some things that you can do so that there is not a plate being passed. To some extent, I think almost anyone can get a Cash App or a Venmo app. But I shudder to think of the dehumanization that's happening of the church system right here, and don't know what the pastors and the parishioners are going to do, because the parishioners are not going to get what they want. They're looking for to go back to with these regulations. What they are trying to get back is pre-COVID, right? We have that thing now. We've got pre-COVID and pre-post. So now we're in post, and nothing is going to look the same. But how do we keep the human part of it? How do we keep the love and the touch and the how are we going to, and how, I think that's the biggest thing of the church. How do you keep that personal love, that caring, that individual caress that the pastor gives to his parishioners? The reason that the people go when you want to go see Sister Julie, and you're looking for, Brother John, and they're going to help you through this battle, and you're in church, and you can, the kids are sitting with their schoolmates, and and matches are made there, right? People go there and meet and date in church and get married. All of these dynamics will not be. So I think that, again, we would lose the culture. I'm hoping that I almost feel, and this is only me, that I feel that the absence of church is better, to have them online, to do it virtually, and to find new ways than to go to a hollow, misshapen and misrepresentation of what church is.
So you think it's more frustrating for members to go back to their sanctuary and find out that there are more don'ts than do's?
Exactly.
That's an anxiety in itself.
Exactly. And we're all facing trauma right now. We're all reacting more than we are thinking, because our fight and flight trigger has been set. And we've been in that mode for the last 3 months. We have literally been in a state of anxiety and stress, high stress, every one of us, for the last 3 months. And it's showing in a lot of the aggression that is going on in our community right now, a lot of overexpression of emotion that's happening right now. And with that, I just think that we need to know that there's a new normal. I think in a lot of our shows, we go through that. It's a new normal. There's a pre and there's a post, and we all need to come together with that. Or you're just going to have people that will be bitter. They're just going to be bitter and unhappy with the change. And for them, again, all I can say is we need to start looking at what we can caress and what we can gain from this new time, this new mix of emotion. All of the protests and the losing of jobs could be the beginning of something better. You know, I mean, we have opportunities and we need to look at those. Stop looking behind, look towards the front of you and see what is out there. What new can we do to capture the heart of our people and to show the love of God?
Wow. I tell you, that's a lot to be dealing with organizationally, emotionally, spiritually. Joyce, Shor, thank you. You know, Joyce, for the sake of our audience, can you share with them where to read the guidelines?
Absolutely. As always, we go to the governor's website, www.covid19.ca.gov. Again, www.covid19.ca.gov. You would click on the box called Industry Guidance. Then you would scroll down to Places of Worship, and there are the 13 pages to read.
Thank you. Thank you. And Shor, can you tell our audience how to reach Tips IE if they want to engage the services that you demonstrated that are impacting our communities from a mental wellness perspective?
Certainly. Tips, Trauma-Informed Prevention Services of the Inland Empire, is sponsored by Community Now. And Community Now is a nonprofit in the Inland Empire that supports mental wellness programming. And this is just one of the things that we do. So you can contact us at www.communitynow.info. And there you can find out about us, look at tips, and there's a way that you can donate and get involved, leave comments. So please leave us comments, let us know what you think, and give us topics.
Wow. Thank you. Shor, Joyce, I think the best way to wrap this up is just to remind the listeners that we are experiencing a new normal, and there's going to be changes and there's going to be adjustments, but we're going to get through it. And to that, I'd like to encourage everyone to be safe. Thank you again.
Thank you.